Okay, let's just get straight into this. No, I'm not done talking about nostalgic LEGO games. Yes, this sequel exists. It was released just 2 years after the original game in 2001 and was developed this time around by Attention to Detail Limited. The developers of the first game, High Voltage Software, were not involved in this game, which becomes increasingly obvious as the two games do not look anything alike outside of being LEGO. The game was once again published by LEGO Media, though they were now under the name LEGO Software. With that quick premises out the way, let's jump straight into the game. Upon starting the game, we are immediately greeted with a cutscene of a depressed Rocket Racer, who is sad about his second place defeat at the hands of the player character in the first game. This does mean that if you played the first game, your player character is canon in the sequel. Meaning, in our case, Champ from the first game, our character that I created, is still canon in our LEGO Racers timeline. From a newspaper clipping hitting him in the face, Rocket Racer finds out about galactic races held on the planet Zalax. I hope that's how you pronounce that planet, I'm sorry if it's not. The prospect of racing across the galaxy gives Rocket Racer the motivation he needs to reclaim his crown. With a new look and a new paint job for his car, which maintains its general design from the first game, Rocket Racer goes on and destroys everyone. Quick note here, this possibly includes Champ / the first game's player character, as Rocket Racer does end up as the Galactic Champion, aka the fastest racer in the galaxy. In my own personal headcanon, he definitely went back to his old track and beat the crap out of Champ in a rematch, and honestly, I cannot blame him. We're going to diverge here real quick for a history lesson. In the first game, as I have now learned, and apparently missed when researching the first game, Rocket Racer, who was bored of simply being the best, is the one who was behind all the circuits we raced through in the first game, as he himself, with the help of the player's mentor Veronica Voltage, who is in-universe a friend of Rocket Racer's and a genius scientist and engineer, had gathered the best racers in the history of Legoland for a racing contest, via the use of a dimensional warp machine built by the aforementioned Veronica Voltage. This does mean we do in fact travel through time and space, blurred as both of those may be in Legoland, in the first game as we move across the different circuits and dimensions of Legoland. A quick excursion into my own headcanon again. Veronica Voltage's dimensional warp machine has made technology across the dimensions of Legoland a bit wishy-washy in terms of who has access to what. And the dimensions have all integrated the technology, as well as cars and other stuff we see them use that they historically should definitely not have access to, into their day-to-day lives, while still keeping their own distinct ways of life outside of racing or whatever sport may fit the plotline of the current game. Think pirates and their ships, adventurers and their dinosaurs. Now that I think about it, that's probably only possible because of Veronica Voltage's dimensional warp machine, but oh well, knights in their castles and so on. In short, Veronica Voltage messed up time and space to create a racing tournament for her friend Rocket Racer. Hilarious, yet oddly fitting for this universe, and a possible explanation as to how we can move through different dimensions / worlds in LEGO games to this day. Our story this time around begins with Rocket Racer, now the Galactic Champion, hosting yet another tournament to find himself a worthy challenger. While Veronica Voltage herself doesn't appear in this game at all, her dimensional warp technology is still at play here, as we once again travel through different dimensions of the Legoland universe. However, this time around the tournament is structured a little bit differently, as racers don't simply go through circuits, but entire worlds. Each of the 5 total worlds you play through, with one exception we'll get to in a moment, has 4 circuit races quote unquote, which need to be completed, i.e. won, before you face off in a one-on-one race with the world's respective champion. Unlike the first game, however, the worlds don't have a set order. Rather, you unlock the worlds by collecting gold bricks, which are earned by winning races, not counting boss races, or finding them in the game's open world. There are a total of 35 gold bricks in the game, but not all of them are needed to complete the game, so you can literally just race without ever going into the open world and you'll be fine. We'll get more into the different worlds, their unlocking requirements, races and bosses when we get to them. For now, let's get into the story or adventure mode and meet our new main character. The main game mode of LEGO Racers 2, Adventure Mode, puts your player character, hailing from Sandy Bay, on their quest to dethrone Rocket Racer. As you play through adventure mode, you unlock the races and worlds you play for the other game modes, which are arcade, which is basically singles races for 1 or 2 players, time attack, which is a time trial, which this time around yields no rewards whatsoever, and you also unlock bonus games, which are basically this game's side quests. As we get into character creation, you'll notice the options for it are sadly far more limited than in the first game, consisting of just 8 options for face, headwear, body, and legs, which do not expand throughout the game as they did in the first one, because once you create a character, they're stuck that way. You can't change anything about them. In the end, after way too much time in the character creator, here's our new protagonist. Meet Ace, a lifeguard at Sandy Bay's beach and racing enthusiast. I am not going to give them any more character than this because frankly this game doesn't deserve it. In truth, it's the car creation where this game really shines. In each of the 5 worlds, the first thing you need to do is get a new car, specific to that world. For this playthrough, I decided to manually build a car for every world, starting with the hub world, Sandy Bay, for which I gave Ace a small beach buggy matching their job. As we begin our journey in Sandy Bay, we are met with our new mentor, Sparky. Fun fact about him, he was originally supposed to be Professor Voltage, the grandfather of Veronica Voltage, our old mentor. But that idea did not come to fruition, though Professor Voltage is still an NPC in this game. Though looking back at my footage, I do not think I ever met this man once. After a quick tutorial, which basically just involves me getting used to the controls and driving to the beach and back, we get into the actual game. The people of Sandy Bay are arguing over who is the fastest racer and will represent Sandy Bay at Rocket Racers Galactic Racing Championship, as well as collectively making fun of Workman Fred here for thinking he can win a race in his digger. It all ends with Ace being challenged to a race by Workman Fred, which they of course accept on the spot with no hesitation whatsoever. However, before actually racing, I decided to explore Sandy Bay's open world, collecting the 3 gold bricks, as well as completing the 2 bonus games. The bricks aren't all too important, as mentioned, you naturally get enough of them to beat the game as you just complete the races. The bonus games, on the other hand, are very much important, as by completing them, you are rewarded with a car upgrade of your choice. In Sandy Bay, these missions are being a taxi driver and getting a certain amount of people to their destinations within a certain time limit. I chose to upgrade grip as well as power for my car, making it both faster and more maneuverable. And I am just going to mention this here, I did use a guide to find the gold bricks and the locations of the bonus games, as I was not about to spend hours skimming every inch of every world for them. With our exploration of Sandy Bay finished, I went and met Workman Fred at the construction site and we got to racing. Now, the races themselves aren't too much to talk about and are generally a lot easier than the first game, mainly because the tracks are a lot wider and don't allow the game's still somewhat janky controls to hamper you all too much. In terms of controls, since we're on the topic, you've got your standard forwards, backwards, and steering, as well as a designated brake, which I neglected throughout most of my playthrough. A big mistake I'd have to, at least partly, admit to myself at certain points throughout this playthrough. As we are starting the race, however, here's a few things about them. Starting with the power-ups. There is the disc, which shoots a projectile in a straight line, bouncing off walls until it either breaks or hits something. There is the dog rocket, or the fetch missile as I like to call it, which is a homing missile, homing in on whatever car it's currently targeting. Then we got the drill, a missile firing in a straight line, hitting anything in its path before exploding. This one is special, as the player can ride this missile by holding the fire button, but it is advised that you do get off the missile before it explodes. Then we got the explosion, which charges up for a few seconds before exploding, hitting any cars surrounding the user, but not the user themselves. Next up, there's the ninja, which makes the user invisible and unable to be targeted by an opponent's missile. We then get the whirlwind, which basically spawns a whirlwind behind you, acting as a hazard for other racers as it pulls them towards it. Finally, we have the Destructibrick, which I never once got. It, according to the game's Brickpedia page, turns your screen yellow for half a second before removing 3 layers of bricks from all cars but your own for 6 seconds. And it is supposedly the most powerful power-up in the game. Also, unlike the first game where you could just pick up a certain brick color to get a certain power-up, this time around the power-ups are random. Since I mentioned the removal of bricks, let's talk about car damage, as it's probably now a good time to mention it. Yes, your car can be destroyed during races. Not during exploration, because let's be real, with how physics work in this game, I'd be walking instead of driving about 90% of the time. If you get hit by a power-up, drive into a wall, or take a higher fall, your car will lose bricks, making you slower and slower the more bricks you lose. You can get your car repaired by driving through pit stops on the racetracks, but there's usually just one per race, and it's usually away from the optimal racing line. Furthermore, yes, your car can completely break, forcing you to walk/run a portion of the race until you reach the next pit stop to get at least part of your car back. This, however, did not happen to me once, though I believe I did see it at some point to a CPU racer. Additionally, your brick boost, which is basically a speed boost, fills up the more damage your car takes, giving you the opportunity to give yourself some extra speed if and when you need it, assuming your car still works by the time you need to use it. It's a mechanic that basically replaces the green brick power-up from the last game and can't be upgraded as far as I'm aware. It's a risk-reward thing, but considering the physics in this game will make you take damage at some point, it's at least a somewhat worthy trade-off in my honest opinion. Anyway, back to the races at hand. In our race against Workman Fred, we don't really break a sweat and defeat him easily, earning a gold brick for a victory and then watching Workman Fred get mocked by Mike the Postman, who would go on to become our next challenger. The Postman in general doesn't prove much more of a challenge than the Workman and isn't exactly worth mentioning outside of he exists as an opponent. We get another gold brick and meet our next opponent, Fireman Gavin. The fireman meets us at the fire station in a prolonged cutscene of him riding an elevator, and Ace being very impressed by this fact. He is again nothing too exciting as we again have no trouble claiming victory. Finally, we face off with our final contestant from Sandy Bay, PC Bobby. This race is worth going into a bit of detail, as pretty early on I missed a checkpoint, meaning I had to drive backwards to repass it correctly and had quite a bit of catching up to do. Now, the checkpoints I haven't brought up yet, but they are very specific, and if you do not drive through them perfectly, you don't get credit for them, meaning you can't progress in the race unless you repass any checkpoints you missed, which can cost you quite some time in a race. However, thanks to the upgrades I got from earlier in the bonus games, I was able to complete the comeback, finishing the final race in Sandy Bay and earning the right to represent Sandy Bay in Rocket Race's Galactic Racing Championship. With Sandy Bay completed, we gain access to the second world, Dino Island. We travel there by Zeppelin, which Ace somehow has the knowledge to pilot, don't question it. Upon arriving, we are greeted by an opening cutscene and are asked to make ourselves a new car, which I do. You can see on screen what I came up with. We spawn in a foyer, which gives us access to the 4 circuit races of Dino Island, as well as the option to go into exploration, which I do right away with the help of Sparky. Out in Dino Island's open world, I collect the 3 gold bricks and complete the 2 bonus games for 2 more car upgrades. In Dino Island's bonus games, we meet an old friend from LEGO Races 1, Johnny Thunder, as well as Pippin Reed, a fellow adventurer whom we also know from LEGO Races 1, where she was known as Gale Storm, one of Rocket Racer's support casts in the final race. Now, Pippin Reed does have a few names across LEGO games: Gale Storm, Linda Lovely in the German version, Rita Reporter in Sweden, Pippin Reed spelled R-E-A-D, and finally Pippin Reed spelled R-E-E-D. Our task this time around is to collect buckets of fuel for our adventurers within a given time frame. The challenge here is that we can only carry 5 buckets at a time, and if we run into a car randomly driving in the open world, we lose all of them and have to gather them again. After completing the bonus games, I upgrade Grip and, for the first time, Shield, which causes our car to take less damage from being hit. With Dino Island's exploration completed, we return to the foyer, meet up with Sparky, and get to the races. Unlike in Sandy Bay, each race here puts Ace against 7 CPU opponents, which remain the same across every world but the final one. These 7 are Johnny Thunder, Pippin Reed, Mr. Cunningham, Cassiopeia, Mac, Frankie Solito, and Baron Rosso. The races, as with Sandy Bay, take us across parts of the open world of Dino Island, which we have previously explored and serve to prepare the player for the boss race later, which will take us across the entire island. There is no set order for these races, and the races are not named, so I won't give too much of a deep dive into each race, only the boss race of each world. Across the 4 races, the part of Dino Island that gave me the most trouble was this winding road within a volcano, which I nearly managed to catapult myself off of a fair few times. This is foreshadowing, by the way. Nonetheless, I managed to win each race on my first attempt, claiming the 4 gold bricks and unlocking the boss. After the boss portal of Dino Island awaits Sam Sinister, another returning character from the first game, where he was known as both Sam Sinister and Baron Von Baron. In lore, this means that this dude entered the first game's racing championship twice, under 2 different names. Furthermore, this dude goes through naming hell across LEGO games, being known as Lord Sam Sinister, Baron Von Barron, Evil Eye, Mr. Hates, and Samuel Von Barron. As every boss, Sam doesn't exactly play by the rules, as his car has a turbocharged engine, making him faster than the other races we faced from the get-go. This race was not a first try, as the janky controls, questionable turning, and my refusal to use the brake button caused me to fall off the winding path in the volcano, allowing Sam to overtake me on the last lap while I climbed back up to get the checkpoints I missed, twice. On my third attempt, I was behind for a good portion of the race, but managed to catch up thanks to finally locking in and not falling down a volcano, as well as remembering the brake button exists, and Sam's AI making a few mistakes, including getting himself stuck once I overtook him, practically gifting me the victory on this one. I'll take it though, as I'm not going down that volcano again. After the race, Sam Sinister gifts us his turbocharged engine, stating he has no more need of it, and giving us a permanent upgrade to our car's speed. Leaving Dino Island behind, we briefly return to Sandy Bay, before heading off to our next world, Mars. We meet Sparky at the launch pad of a spaceship, which Ace, of course, pilots themselves, while Sparky employs the age-old strategy of running away screaming as we take off. Probably a wise choice, let's be real. As we arrive on Mars, we of course crash land. Whose idea was it again to let a lifeguard pilot a spaceship? Anyway, after creating ourselves a new vehicle for Mars, we somehow make it to Mars's foyer, where Sparky awaits. How did he get here? No idea. LEGO logic, I guess, or he's just that good. One of the two. We immediately head out to exploration and collect the 3 gold bricks scattered across Mars, before tackling the bonus games for some new upgrades. Here on Mars, the bonus games aren't that different from the ones on Dino Island, only now we are collecting crystals as opposed to fuel buckets. But either way, the bonus games serve once again as a way for me to get introduced to Mars's world and the locations I would soon be racing through. I spent both the upgrades from the bonus games on grip, as at our current speed, being able to actually steer the vehicle was essential. The races on Mars, while I did have some adventures involving the game's terrain and physics, were a cakewalk. At this point in the game, our upgrades make our vehicle basically unbeatable, barring big time user error, which I thankfully avoided this time around. However, to not completely skip over these races in their entirety, easy as they may have been, there was one interesting thing I found, namely this here shortcut in which you push aside a few rocks in the water, somehow not damaging your vehicle, skipping a decently long turn which saves a few seconds of time. One more note before we get to the boss race. During my time on Mars, I made the decision to turn off the game's music. While the music is generally nothing bad, the sound levels are just awful. For instance, the music would switch from being at the quiet volume I set it to during exploration and gameplay, to being unbearably loud during many cutscenes, causing me a severe headache as I played the game. This did however mean that I turned up the SFX volume a little bit and got to experience one of the reasons this game used to get some flack, namely the lack of voice acting, as every character talks in gibberish. Have a listen. Anyway, onto the boss. We returned to the foyer and entered the boss race. And trust me, there is a reason that that image is there. In the boss race, we are met with Regal, a Martian who claims to drive an indestructible vehicle. Note the usage of the term vehicle instead of car, both here from Regal and from myself during the entire Mars segment. Ace is, of course, unimpressed, claiming foolishly that no car is indestructible. Regal is amused and reveals to us his giant walking mech, stating he never said his vehicle was a car. A cheeky move admittedly, but we do race him nonetheless. In this race, a couple of things are immediately obvious. One, Regal's mech is generally faster than the player's car and can't be hurt by projectiles and power-ups, making it, for our racing purposes, indestructible. Two, thankfully, getting stepped on by Regal's mech does not damage your car. And 3, there's a good reason Mars has mostly wide and open racetracks, that reason being the stomping mech we're currently racing. Overall, this race is not too challenging, as if you're able to build a lead and drive at least semi-decent, you're not gonna have an issue defeating Regal, whose mech appears to be difficult to steer, often gliding during turns, causing him to lose time. This race is also where the shortcut I brought up earlier comes in handy, as it gives the player a chance to gain a small lead on Regal early on. It also helps that sometimes Regal's mech gets stuck in the terrain, allowing for a lead to be extended even further. We hand Regal a solid defeat, and during his ensuing tantrum, he knocks off his mech's shield generator. Ace, with some convincing from Sparky, decides to borrow this shield generator for their own vehicle, meaning from now on our vehicles will be able to sustain a good bit more damage, which can come in quite handy. We somehow managed to make our way back to Sandy Bay, employing Veronica Voltage's dimensional warp technology, thankfully not having Ace pilot a spaceship again. We do not spend too much time at home though, as we immediately take a helicopter, again piloted by Ace, to our next world, the Arctic. Thankfully, this time around, we do manage a safe landing. We create ourselves a little snowmobile and meet Sparky in the Arctic's foyer, before immediately heading into exploration once again. While collecting the 3 gold bricks is hardly worth mentioning, the bonus games kind of are. While still following the same collect and deliver concept, the Arctic does have its own little spin on this. Here, we are collecting weather balloons, of which we can hold a maximum of 4 at a time. And the more we hold, the more control we lose of our snowmobile. If we were to collect a 5th balloon, our vehicle would begin to float away, which thankfully I did avoid. This time around I upgrade power twice. As with Regal's shield generator now in our inventory, upgrading shield seemed redundant, and I'd already upgraded grip a total of 4 times, the maximum I'm gonna take it for this run. With our car fully upgraded, we are ready to race, and return to the foyer, bringing our exploration in the Arctic to a merciful end. I say merciful as even with my guide, I spent a good 20 minutes looking for the location of one of the 2 bonus games, which is hidden on this ice path in this here cave, where you normally would not think to go unless you made a mistake. Returning to the foyer, we immediately get started with the Arctic's races. These races aren't too tough, though they do have the ice physics as well as the cramped corridors of this stranded ship going for them. The 2 funniest things that happened were that in the second race I got hit by a missile and knocked outside of these barriers, causing me to miss a checkpoint, have to force my way through the barrier, go backwards to get the checkpoint I'd missed, and then play catch up from last place, which thankfully wasn't all that tough. Secondly, in the third race, I was so far ahead I began lapping some of the other racers. However, as I tried to bully 2 of them with a missile, I managed to launch myself off the winding mountain path, sound familiar, and had to reclimb the mountain. Thankfully, my lead was big enough to where this didn't really matter, and since we were going up the mountain, it didn't cost me nearly as much time as it could have had we been going down the mountain. Finally, with the last of the circus races wrapped up, we gain access to the Arctic's boss race. This time around, we are put up against Berg, get it? Because Iceberg, an ice monster who doesn't appear all too kind of a fellow. Regardless, we get into the race, where Berg immediately cheats. Yeah, this is basically his gimmick, as he starts to run as soon as the first light hits, leaving us a few seconds behind from the get-go. He also spawns ice pillars from the ground on the path he runs, meaning you can't take the same path as him as you chase him down, lest you risk damaging or breaking your car. Once we do overtake him, the race is basically over, as he isn't all that fast, can't use power-ups, and both his head start and ice pillars are now fully negated. In the end, we leave him in the dust by around a third of a lap. Post-race, Berg starts crying as he now won't be able to go to Xalax, never mind his cheating probably not flying there. Ace cheers him up a bit, saying Berg raced really well. Likely a lie, but whatever. And Berg rewards us with some super wheels, which offer extra grip for our vehicles going forward. With the new upgrade in hand, we briefly return to Sandy Bay and head to the portal to Xalax, ready to face our final challenge. Xalax is this game's final world, requiring you to have beaten the bosses of the other worlds in order to enter. Ace, fortunately, doesn't need to pilot a transportation vehicle this time around, as we simply arrive in Xalax's foyer through the portal, after of course building ourselves a car to take on Rocket Racer. Is it the prettiest car? No. Do I care? No, I just want to get to the races now. But of course, before racing, we chat with Sparky and go out to explore. The golden bricks aren't even remotely worth mentioning, as they currently serve no purpose other than 100% completion. The bonus games, which this time around I spent on a 4th power upgrade as well as a 2nd shield upgrade, involve us collecting drones. Basically the same as any other bonus game, however with the twist that these drones aren't stationary, instead moving in circles, making them a bit tougher to pick up. Nothing too difficult still, and we wrap up our exploration of Zalax shortly after. The races on Zalax, leading up to Rocket Racer, are some of the most fun races in this game. For starters, we race against a new cast of characters, namely the aliens local to Zalax. These guys are called Lightor, Warrior, Duster, Ghost, Freeze, Chill, and Snake. The tracks themselves are quite unique too, as we race through some new obstacles, including a vertical U-turn, which I managed to launch myself off of at one point, a loop-de-loop, which while not adding too much trouble was still fun, these stepping stones which change permanently. You're supposed to take your time here, but I found the strategy of just going full throttle, trying my best to avoid the platforms on the fly and letting my shield handle damages to be far quicker. And some jumps, which are also fun. Also, one of these races is literally just a figure 8, which, if nothing else, made for some decent target practice. We cleared the races without too much issue, aside from some excursions exploring the game's physics and gravity, and are now able to challenge Rocket Racer. Finally, we come face to face with Rocket Racer, who apparently decided to just walk all the way across the arena. Alright, I got time, don't worry. He gives us some props, as he's been following the races taking place across the different worlds, and witnessed our rise to racing stardom. We both exchange some trash talk, as you do, and get into the race. A quick side note, Rocket Racer has become a lot more humble in this sequel, giving us our flowers, respecting our trash talk and confidence, and even accepting the fact that he might lose, despite currently being unbeaten in his new home track, which is some nice character development for the guy. And now, all we've done has led to this. The races, the upgrades, the different worlds we traveled have all brought us here. To the final challenge, the race to end all races. The ultimate letdown. No, seriously, this race blows. The track is a circle, and while it has walls that force you to move around them, this is hardly a challenge, even without using the ramps that can be used to jump over some of these walls. There's a pit stop halfway across a lap, so even if you incur some damage to your car, you'll easily be able to fix it, as this pit stop barely costs you any time, unlike some of the other races. Furthermore, Rocket Racer himself, not 5 seconds into the race, got himself stuck behind a wall, probably from trying to jump over it, but not having enough speed, I don't know. This means that I won this race, the final boss race, may I remind you, by about a third of a lap, which is nothing short of a massive disappointment. Regardless of my opinion of the race itself, which I believe I've made very clear, Ace had done it, and they are now the best racer in the galaxy. Rocket Racer, true to his character development, takes his defeat very well, standing beside us as we hoist the trophy, and asks us to look after it, as he'll be coming back for it sooner or later. With some quips from Ace, which Rocket Racer takes with the humor they deserve, we are met with not only all 4 of our friends from Sandy Bay, but also the 3 bosses we defeated on our way to get to this point. They all congratulate us, and have some kind words to share, with even Sam Sanister being honorable in defeat, now that he knows he lost to the best racer in the galaxy. As the celebrations in Zalax wind down, we return home to Sandy Bay. Now, in this playthrough, we got all 35 gold bricks, for 100% completion. What's our reward for that? A cutscene? A special car? Anything worthwhile? No, of course not. It's simply some fireworks that go off in Sandy Bay, which you can barely see unless you're actively looking for them. Either way, our journey in LEGO Racers 2 has come to an end, and what a wild ride it was. Right, let's get into my thoughts and feedback. In terms of a sequel, this game is definitely a worthy follower to LEGO Racers 1. While the physics, despite a new developer making this game, have remained wonky, the racing has been improved dramatically. Mainly in the form of the tracks being built into the open world and having practically no limitations on the racing itself. As in any of these races, outside of the last one, you can go anywhere in the open world, use all sorts of shortcuts you can find, and are only bound by the checkpoints. While the aforementioned checkpoints can be an annoyance if you miss one due to the physics of the game, they do serve their purpose, as if it weren't for them, the races would basically be redundant, as you could just drive straight across the open world and throw yourself off mountains as shortcuts. The exploration and open world style of gameplay are a nice touch, with the worlds themselves each being unique enough to want to explore. And of course, the added bonus of being able to see the places you'll be racing through can be quite advantageous if you're not used to the physics yet. Though some of the gold bricks and bonus games being hidden in spots you'd normally never think to drive to are quite annoying at times. Again, I don't want to know how long finding all these would have taken me without a guide. I will also give the game some flack for having the actual races only be accessible through the foyers of each world, and not be built into the open world, outside of Sandy Bay. Speaking of the bonus games, while they are a nice addition and the upgrades gained from completing them make them very much worthwhile, they get repetitive very quickly. The only ones that aren't find thing, bring thing to drop off are the two in the very first world, Sandy Bay, where you are a taxi driver instead. In my opinion, these games could have been so much more. Think a treasure hunt on Dino Island, a recovery mission on Mars, or a skill competition using the ramps on Xalax. There was so much more potential here than what ended up being in the game. In terms of the boss races, I like the fact that there's a variety to them, and it isn't just slightly better driving AI. While Sam Sanister is a regular driver, Regal with his mech and Burke with his cheating antics make for unique races to finish out each world. While these bosses, if you drive well enough and don't fall down an entire volcano, aren't too difficult, they do serve to break up the mundane races every now and again. Though it must be said, again, the final boss, Rocket Racer, is a massive letdown, as he was arguably the easiest of them all, which just should not be the case in any game. Plus, as I've already stated, the reward for collecting every gold brick is just pathetic. This all now begs the question, where do I see this game compared to its predecessor? Well, in terms of world design, I'd give the edge to LEGO Racers 2. Despite LEGO Racers 1 having more variation in its tracks, LEGO Racers 2's open, more cohesive world design does give it the edge here. When it comes to the race tracks, LEGO Racers 2 again takes it from me. The wider, more open tracks just work much better with the game's controls and physics. Additionally, I like that the race tracks are built into the open world and don't just exist outside of it. Minus the final racetrack, of course, which is a shame. Power-up wise, I personally prefer the first game, where you have much more control over your power-ups, and the ability to upgrade them was quite a fun mechanic. While I'm not saying the second game's power-ups are bad, I just prefer the first games. Finally, let's talk about difficulty. LEGO Racers 1 is, in my opinion, by far the more difficult game of the two. As in the first game, the only way to really make the game less difficult was for you to just get better, making for far more of a challenge. In this game, if you do go out of your way to complete the bonus games and get the upgrades from them, you become basically unstoppable. And even without them, you're not gonna have too much trouble, as the mandatory upgrades you get by defeating the bosses still are more than enough for the casual, non-completionist player. Plus, Rocket Racer is just flat out more of a challenge in the first game, and the track you race him on in LEGO Racers 1 is leagues better than the circle you get in the second game. In conclusion, I would put this game a slight step above LEGO Racers 1 in terms of gameplay and world building, but a step below in challenge and nostalgia, as this game wasn't one I remember playing too actively when I was younger. If I were to put this on the same 1 through 10 scale as I did the first game, I'd put it at a solid 6.5 out of 10, as it is a better game than its predecessor, just lacking in challenge and nostalgia. I'll keep this outro brief, as this video has honestly gotten long enough already. If you've stuck around to the end, thank you so much for watching and for giving this video a chance. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to leave a comment, like, and possibly even subscribe. It'd help the channel out a lot. Before I sign off, there's one last thing I do want to mention. With MLB spring training in full force, the World Baseball Classic on the near horizon, and the MLB season set to follow suit, you can most likely expect more baseball-focused content in the near future. While this doesn't mean variety will completely vanish from the channel, it may become a slight bit less frequent. Until then, I do hope to see you all again soon, and goodbye for now.